Well, then, without further ado, at 1:06, we'll call the meeting to order. I've got some feedback going on. There we go.
If you hold it away, then you can't hear it.
Hold it closer?
No.
A little
Here
further.
he comes.
Go ahead, Clay. Take care of this situation.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? We are, okay, and we are, Rita is going to be testing out a new device, which you have heard, I think, already, so hopefully that will create more clarity. We know that there is some difficulty hearing in this room. The acoustics aren't very good. And I think, and I know that we have a tendency to move the microphone away from our mouth because we get talking and then you guys can't hear. So we're going to try to correct that with those devices if they test out well, which they seem to be doing so far. Welcome to the very first board meeting for 2023. The board earlier this month met as an executive group, and just wanted to let you know that we set up the organization. We've got a few things that we want to do, and I'm going to remain as chairman. Scott will be the vice chairman. Jerry has taken on the role of secretary of the corporation. However, he is in training, so Janice is helping him to train, and Janice has assumed the role of treasurer, and I know that I mentioned Scott, vice chairman, taking over for Reed. So that's the organization. We're going to talk a little bit about committee formation today, and so we'll get to that. In the meantime, I want to make a motion. Everybody read the minutes from last meeting? Okay. I'm sorry? Yes, dear. Oh, we didn't?
No,
It's
they're
Annual meeting.
This is the annual meeting, and they're approved at the next December meeting in the November minutes.
Okay, so we don't approve those minutes.
And the November minutes have already been
No,
approved.
thank you. I get into a repetitive
I
mode,
know.
and so the same words come out every month, and so we'll pass on that. So with that, Rita, you want to either review the agenda or begin with the financial?
Yeah. So in the packet today, in the financial portion, you'll have page 1, which is going to be the financials. Page 2 is going to be the cash management. Page 3 is going to be your meal count information. And page 4 is going to be 2 sheets for the sales and leasing reports. So we'll start out. So the last couple weeks I've been working to close out 2022. I consider these financials that I'm presenting today to be a great representation of 2022. Fulton and Kozak will be here middle February to do their review, with financials going out to the owners sometime by the end of March. So as you can see on page 1, I have condensed the line items for the ease of you all following along. Page 1. The first column we have is the FY22 actuals. The second column is FY22 budget. The third column is the variance between the actuals at the end of the year and what the budget was. And I just added the fourth column just as a reminder of what the 2023 budget was approved at. Following down to what is labeled number 1 shows our total revenues for the year. Our actual revenues at the end of the year was $5,796,098, which was $404,239 better than budget. You'll see that $302,000 of that was due to the PCC revitalization and the increase in census. Moving down to line item labeled 2, our total expenses before depreciation was $4,745,876, which was $276,000 over budget. Number 3 shows our total operating income of $1,050,222,000, which was better than budget by $128,000. Moving down to our net income, Our net income was $825,859,000, which was better by budget of $259,000. Does the board have any questions concerning that?
Okay, so that's a strong finish, right? We are on target for what our expectations are for 2023, right?
Yes.
So we're starting off in a good position.
Yep, feel good about the 23 budget and also continuing to work on the declaration change. I believe we can do even better.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Anybody else?
Nope.
The administrative expense being over budget was 99,000 over budget.
Yep, so
That was what, that was caused by.
let's break this right out here. So we were over budget, let's see. Well, no, you're not over budget, you're better than budget. Your administrative expense is,
Oh, yeah, I'm
right,
sorry.
our actual
I
was
got it.
487,
I
the budget,
flipped it.
yeah.
I was-
You're almost
I flipped it.
$100,000 better than budget
Right, okay,
in
I
that
flipped
category.
it. So,
And half of that was due to legal fees.
so it's
That's a big
the
win.
employee,
Yeah.
it's employee expense and food costs that really are the drivers there.
Right.
And so that goes back again to dining was the driver on being over budget there. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to page 2, which is the cash management. You can see our total reserve account at 12/31 was $1,427,363. Our total operating account had $519,811, which is $54,811 better than the $465 that we thought we were going to have in October when we did the budget. Our total cash at the end of 2022 was $1,947,173, which is an increase of $776,410 from December of 2021.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, that's the homeowner's money.
Spectacular.
Yeah, it's not, it's good.
Any questions there? Moving to page 3 is the meal counts. I took off all of 21, it's just getting too convoluted. So these are the meal counts for each period for 2022. You can see our total meals for the year was 74,172. You can go through the meals periods individually, but that number is consistent with what we had in 2021. Last month or so, we've been working with Morrison's on the next menu reveal, and in your board packets today, you do have the latest revision that came out yesterday of the lunch and dinner. If you could please review that so we could make any changes. We're trying to launch a new menu the first couple weeks of February. I do have some training set up with the management in Morrison's to start the Rebel, which is our POS system process. The sooner the menu's finalized, we have to get it all in that system. So I look forward to that. Moving on to page 4, that represents our sales and leasings and the condo sales for 2022. So we technically have 19 vacant units, 3 that are for sale, 2 that are for lease, 3 that always remain vacant, 6 that is undetermined of what the owner's intention is, and 5 that are coming available soon to show. If there's something on the market and the owner has not let us know or listed it with us, then we don't know what their intentions are yet. The last page of 4, you can see all the condo sales in 2022, which total sales came in at $6,828,175. I do want to mention to the board that new this year, we are now leasing out the old activities / sales and leasing office down the hall to Love Home Care. You'll see some stuff on the door and sign their hours and so forth. We do have a sign order for them, so that's gonna be some extra revenue that's not
Were
been
those the
budgeted.
people up by the
Mhm.
dining room?
Yep, they're in the back of the hall. They're in the building every day. Several staff members from Love Home Care.
And what were they doing out there?
Blood pressure check, heart monitor check, sugar check. So
Is it just
do
like a
that every
walk up and get
Thursday.
it?
Mhm.
Huh.
Yeah. And the lease for that is the same as we're leasing the beauty shop for.
You might need that after the meeting.
So,
Listen.
no questions on that. We can start into the board ledgers.
Yeah, I'll sort of start this, we killed all the committees basically last year, so. But, we obviously know that we should have committees and of some sort, some functioning committees. So the first thing, we talked about that originally, the first thing that I just wanted to ask was if everybody on the board had read the old mission statements. If you took any time at all to look at the mission statements that Rita sent out. Okay, so what I want to do here, if we can, is sort of talk about the ones that are on the list, determine whether or not we should have that committee, right? And then we'll talk about what to do about that after we decide whether or not that's a committee we should have. So the first one on the list is the architectural and control, right? Does the board members believe that that's a important committee for us to have?
Of course I do. I think that's, well, maybe I should.
Yeah.
Yes, I think we should have an architectural decor committee.
Okay. Would everybody agree with that? Because I'll make a motion to have an architectural.
Well,
I
yeah,
think so.
but on the information that Rita sent, I don't see an architect and decor.
It says facilities and decor, but it's gone by several different names and kind of interchangeable.
Okay, maybe we can change it then to what it should be as architect and control.
That's
Yeah,
fine,
and what we're gonna do, I mean, what I wanna do here is, I don't wanna just, leave it as, okay, we're gonna have a committee. What I wanna do is go back and we're gonna come back and talk about who's gonna lead those committees and then talk about putting a new mission statement, the correct mission statement together for it, and then selecting, whoever the people that process about going about doing that. So I just wanna sort of settle in on the committees, what the committees are gonna be versus what all the rules are and what the qualifications are, or what it's gonna do. We'll come back to that.
All right, I agree
So
with an architect.
make a motion that we have an architectural committee?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay, and everybody votes yes. Okay, finance committee. Of course, I think there should be a finance committee, right?
We should have a finance
Right,
committee.
right, so, does everybody agree with that? Yeah, I'll make a motion to have a finance committee. Second, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Food and beverage, right, so we had a resident-led or owner-led, resident-led committee that was voted for at the end of the 2021 year. When that committee came together, they did a couple of things. And the question is should we come back and now have a formalized committee for food and beverage?
I would move we do that.
Okay, any seconds?
I would second.
Okay. Any other discussion necessary before we say yes?
Well, I think what the discussion there is what is their function mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get into that, or you want to delay that for a while.
I don't want to delay it for a while. What I'd like to do is, just for all these things, is say, we're gonna have this committee, okay? Now what I'm gonna ask is who's going to lead that committee from a board perspective, and then come back in 2 weeks during the executive session, say, this is what I think the committee should be doing, this is what the mission of it is going to be, and then we can discuss it, and then we can announce it. Does that feel okay?
Yeah, I think that's fine, but what we did last time when we set these up, we formed the committees, and obviously, what you said, leadership wise. And we asked the committee to come up with what they thought they should be doing. And then that was presented to the board, and the board approved it. So we're talking about this, I'm thinking the same thing here, where we get the committee together, and committee can discuss what it thinks its function should be. Or is the board going to dictate? Either way, there needs to be some discussion with the residents and owners, if need be, about what this committee should be doing.
Okay, so that's fair, that's fair, go ahead, you go.
That's okay. I agree. But I think it's important that the residents be involved at the time of when we decide what the committee or the task force, which I like that word better, the task force to whatever the committee is and whatever mission we have, that should drive what the residents is involved in. So I don't
that's
think
what I said.
I thought you put, I think you put the residents before, getting them to create what the purpose is versus us stating what the purpose is.
Well, I said that, but I also said that we get together and we discuss and come up with what the final is, and the board does the final approval. Because you want input from owners and residents and not just dictating to them. It's gonna come the front end, or it's gonna come the back end.
Yeah.
So, I mean, which way do you wanna do it? You wanna have the board tell them what they're gonna do, and then they come back and say, no, we think we ought to be doing this and additional to that?
I would like for the board to tell them what the purpose is, okay? And be guided by the sponsor on whatever is going to happen. And there could be a lot of things that happen afterwards. And yes, they can have their input. I'm just saying that instead of them creating the team and what they want to do, we need to give them guidance on what we, the Mount Vernon Tower Board, needs for them to do. I see a difference.
I just see it in reverse. I just see it reversed either way. This goes one way, it goes the other way.
So why don't we do it this way? Because both those opinions are really valid, right? I agree. I agree that one of the things that we need to do is we need to have our expectations. What are the board expectations of those? We're forming committees. We should have expectations of those committees, and we should talk about what those are in a general sense before we come up with a mission or a charter for it. Then what we're deciding is, all right, what's the committee? What do we believe we want the outcome to be? How many people should we have on the committee? Some of the little logistics of it, the tactical pieces of it. And then go ahead and have the committee come back with what they believe. Once they're formed, have the committee come back with their thoughts about what it should be, how it should work, how it should operate.
And there was a piece there because of then you create your teams, because you're asking people to come with the knowledge, the experience, the education of what is needed to be done, not just form your team where you don't know exactly what's going to be needed, and then those people that have volunteered may not really have the expertise or the knowledge or even a want to be on that team. That's where I was coming from.
So,
Just to be efficient.
okay, let's sort of, we'll finalize that and sort of finish off that bit of practicality that's involved there in the executive session. We'll work that out, and then we'll come to a conclusion about it, and then we'll come to some, like I said, a conclusion, or wherever the appropriate vote takes place, we'll take that appropriate vote. But for now, right now, we've got a architectural control committee, we have a finance committee, and we have a food and beverage committee. Agreed?
I would agree with that.
Does everybody agree with that? It's not a vote, it's just an agreement.
Agree.
Well, we motioned on the others.
No, we're gonna go on, okay. We're gonna go on. So a nomination committee, right?
Okay.
We'll have elections coming up, we'll need a nominating committee to
Yep.
Look at prospective candidates, I'll make a motion that we continue our nominating committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Great. No, we'll take questions and answers at the end of our board meeting.
But this concerns what you're talking about.
Yes, but we'll write your question down and we'll be glad to answer it after the board meeting, okay?
Okay, and then social committee, or what was formerly known as the activities committee, right? Do we believe we should have a social committee of some sort to help us look into the types of activities, recreation that is necessary for a community of this size?
What would the activities committee, what have they done in the past?
Well, there's the old mission statement, right, that we have to work with here, and the
Yeah, I missed that.
right, the old mission statement said our mission is to identify areas of special interest of our residents through conversations with them on this subject, with both longtime residents and new residents alike, resulting in the activities department planning outings that are of most interest to our residents. To search out residents with special talents that could be utilized for part of offering of classes, examples, flower arranging, design, those types of things. So that's what the activities committee did. Sort of it was an input to the types of activities, maybe even suggestions about what those activities were, maybe even getting involved in the activities.
But one of the, you read on here too, and one of the activities though would be to be part of a newcomers activity, to participate in welcoming newcomers and to assist the activities department where they would have, maybe guiding people to, here's where the program is tonight, welcoming people at the door, not necessarily being part of the entertainment, but just being the welcoming committee, say hello. So there was some level of input as far as what goes on and level of input in how you would assist, but not direct.
And it would be decided whenever the committees are formed.
And the committee would decide who does what you're saying, yeah.
So yes, if you're asking, I agree that would be a good committee or
Okay.
task force.
Motion to create that committee?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, got that committee.
okay.
Okay, are there,
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I didn't get who first and second that motion.
I seconded.
And you got it
and,
first.
and yes, I made the motion, we
Thank
all
you.
voted in
Thank you.
favor of a social
Don't keep us
committee.
straight now.
Yeah, all right, so we go. Okay, are there any other committees? I wrote down a number of things that I shared with you guys before. I'm not particularly in favor, against, whatever. I don't want too many committees. We're going from 0, right, to 60 in 20 seconds. So I want to be careful of doing that. I don't mind saying later we have different things to go on, but I'll just mention some of the other things like landscaping, safety, technology, blah, 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 blah. I could go on. Is there any other committees that we believe, that the board believes that we are in need of at this moment?
At this moment, I think that we've got the 5 that we've identified. I think that when things come up during the year, that's where my task force term comes into play. It may not be a long-term committee for 2023, but it could be a task force that we need to have someone to come and help us design whatever that task is. That's my opinion.
Okay. Okay, so we've agreed to 5 committees. I'll just sort of start with the very first one, and I will nominate Scott to chair the architectural control.
I second that.
Seconds. All those in favor? Okay. Okay, finance? It feels like me. Unless it's gonna be you.
I don't mind to take finance unless you want it.
I don't care. I mean, I'm gonna participate in it no matter what.
Yeah, I know.
So should we leave it to the treasurer?
Is that how it's been in the past?
That would be normal. You know.
What's that?
That kind of be normal for
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
companies or whatever, the treasurer would do.
All right, so then I'll nominate
You can
you,
be a member.
Janice, Evan. I'll join you.
Okay.
I'll nominate Janice as the chairman of the finance committee. Any
Second?
seconds?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, good, we got that. Food and beverage, this is controversial. Oh.
Maybe harder.
In my opinion, my humble opinion, this needs to be a resident owner, not a outside owner. Someone, we need boots on the ground.
Don't do that.
All right, so Jerry is gonna volunteer, so that means I'll nominate him.
And I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That leaves us with the social committee.
Oh, I'd like to do that.
Okay.
I can think of some good parties.
All right, good, that's good, that's excellent, and now I'll nominate Reed for the social committee, social director, activities director. All right, any seconds?
I'll second.
All right.
Are you actually?
Are you kidding? I'm not kidding.
Okay. I'll second it
Excellent,
then.
okay. Oh, well, I skipped the nominating committee.
Yeah.
Well, the nominating committee will be made up of somebody who's not running, right? It would be Jerry and Scott, or anybody who chooses not to run. That could also be added. So I might say, as would be customary, we'll put the nominating committee off for until the end of the first quarter or whatever, and then we can start talking about it again. Is that okay with everybody?
It's okay with me.
Okay, great, all right. All right, we've got our assignments.
Not as-
All right, so could we be ready to come back and have some discussion about what we think the objectives are for the committee in the executive session that we'll have in 2 weeks? And then we can move all that into the regular board meeting for February to make decisions. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that meeting is February 8th.
Is that when it is?
Because 2 weeks is, 2 weeks is kind of nebulous, let's put a
Yeah,
date
give
on
us
it.
the 8th
Yeah.
and then before meeting the 20th.
Okay, we have a date of the 8th.
The 8th.
Okay. All right, great. All right, so good. That's good. Some of the things that I want to make sure that we come back with is, well, how many people should be on it? Should we, should we have some sort of qualifying, requirements for individuals who are on it? And then are we going to sort of assign a budget to it, right? And when I say something like that, the easy one for me is to like the social committee, where we have a budget for activity. So, how to spend that money is part of the, part of the designing whatever it is you're gonna do, right? So, we'll come back to that. I don't wanna make a decision on it, so I just wanna suggest that as some of the things to consider for the 8th. Okay? Other questions? No?
Nope.
Okay. With not the objective of, just totally taking over the meeting in any way. What I want to do now is sort of go through the capital review update, okay? And the purpose of doing this is less for the audience, but for the board, okay? the audience will get to see certain things that will be informative. But what I want to, the outcome that I want from this meeting is, are we all on the same page? Right? Does the board think about this the same way? Are we on the same page? And I want that to be the outcome. Either we are or we're not. We have to revise some things. So I just want to take you guys through the, what is a 5-page deal that I put together, that I actually ran through some of this with a small group of people already, led by Mr. Al Burgess and a group, to start to unwind a couple of things that were brought up as significant concerns. They were things like things that have been said, things that have been told, misunderstandings about what it is, what it's not. And so I wanted to start by just talking about a little bit of the history, right? With you guys, to make sure we're all on the same page, because Jerry, you weren't here, right? Janice, you're about midway. Reed, Scott, and I have been through the whole thing with others. Okay, so it started back in March of 21, not 22, not this year. Okay, it started back almost 2 years ago. And what happened was we had our financial audit. One of the things that came out in the financial audit was that our capital requirements had gotten stale. The auditor noticed that we kept on repeating the same capital improvements or capital requirements and repairs each year for several years. So they indicated in the audit that we needed to refresh that. So we started to do that, but we weren't going to get it done until the next annual meeting when it was required to be done. All right, so at the end of the year, we would have delivered that. But in June of 2021, I think probably everybody here, and you guys all remember, right, that the building collapsed in Florida, right? The Surfside Condominium complex collapsed. And I know that I heard a lot about, could that happen to us? Could it happen here? And our building, while it's not on the seaside affected by salt air and all that stuff, some of the similar things that happened there's a great liability put on the board of that place. And our building is about the same size and same age, right? So it then sort of created a sense of urgency to look at it. Then in July, Rick, our maintenance guy, he was observing, doing a sort of a visual inspection, and he saw a nasty little streak on one of the chases. And in that nasty little streak, it was about almost 2 floors long, okay? And it was of concern. So we believed it might have been a mold thing going on. But outside mold on the outside of the building, no big deal, right? So we decided that we wanted to bring in a environmentalist to take a look around, poke around, see what we had going on, if we had anything that was a hazard that we needed to deal with. And then we had some findings from that. We'll talk a little bit about that. But in August then, in September, we also had hired a structural engineer, because you saw, this streak going on there, and then we started to see, some cracking going on. You see, when you go in the stairwells and stuff, you see like step cracking and things like that. So we asked a professional engineering company to come in and do a visual inspection to get to areas they could access and look and see what other issues that we had. And so we got reports from both of those. They were delivered to the board of directors in, I think, October. One was in August and one was in October of 2021. So we had those assessments, And in the annual meeting, we didn't resolve anything, but what we did do was we had put out a list of what we thought was the 5-year capital plan. Does everybody here remember all that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So that's what happened. Go ahead. So I just wanted to present sort of the results of those reports, all right? These are from the reports, okay? I'm not gonna tell you, every word up there is on the report. All right, I just took it, made it a little bit more concise. So I'll read it to you. Robards, the environmental group, did a limited mold study. Okay? And what they did was they took control samples of airborne mold, okay, outside the building, inside a condo unit that was within the context of that streak that I talked about. And then they took a mold sample, airborne spore sample of inside the hallway. Great news, okay? We're all worried about it. We were concerned about that activity, but what we found in the worst place that we could find, we found that the outside mold that was out just in the air was worse, much worse, than what it was inside the unit, and even more worse than that was, I'm sorry, less worse, because I want to make sure I say this right. It was hardly any impact in the hallway. So in the building was really clean, right? That unit where it was the worst was elevated a little bit, but certainly within normal, and outside was far worse. So that took some concern away, but when they looked into it, when they were doing their testing, they had noticed that EFIS, which is the material which sits inside the stucco of our chase, and we'll go into that a little bit more, had been deteriorated in some places. That's where it had sort of collected. And so it wasn't migrating into the units. It certainly wasn't migrating into the building. And so we knew that was happening inside those chases. That's it. The conclusions that they came to for us was that past moisture intrusion had adversely impacted the HVAC units and the EFIS, the material that is inside those chases. Okay? They didn't really recommend it, they wanted us to require a change in our procedure when handling the HVAC units, because if you were to take out the HVAC unit, what would happen is if you didn't handle that properly, you could expose the unit to mold. Okay? So we changed our procedures. Maintenance was trained to put up a curtain, airtight curtain, get an air scrubber in there, so if anybody went into your unit to maintain the HVAC unit, it was properly cared for as to not expose the unit to any particulates that could be harmful. The components responsible for preventing water intrusion into the building envelope were aged and in failing condition, is what they said. Okay, and should be replaced. Then we had Nova Engineering come in. Okay, now we interviewed several engineering companies. We selected Nova. Okay? Oh, they had a lot of observations. They went around, everything that they could look at, they looked at in the building envelope, and where they could get to access, they accessed. But, we don't have any structure on the roof that allows us to hang from the roof and get to high spots, right? So there's a limit to what we can actually do. They saw that step cracking, they saw that the brick was missing some weeps, which allows moisture to escape. They noticed that all the coatings and sealants were failing. Failed stucco along the HVAC enclosure, the chase. Concrete and bricks were failing, right? That's what a spall is. And there were some cracks in the elevated parking deck, the top of the parking deck. But their conclusion was the building was in pretty fair condition. Okay, so it wasn't going to fall down. We weren't going to wind up, like Surfside. But components responsible for preventing water intrusion into the building envelope were aged and in failing condition. So they concluded the same thing as the environmentalist. Okay, separately, two different companies, separately hired, and concluding the same thing. And they were recommending that additional repairs be made because of water and all, and wind. And if repairs weren't done, that it would just get worse. Okay? So that's what happened. So let's just go to the next, everybody, that's what happened, right?
Right.
Nobody disagrees with that on the board. Okay. Okay, so here's what we've done since that time. Okay, we've continued to look at the chases and the units as they've been made available to us to do. So we started, there was an issue in one of the units on the, it was a 3-stack, right, on the 3-stack in A. And it caused us to say, hey, you know what, let's get permission from all the owners in 3-stack A to go in there, set up our tent, and go in and look into the units, take pictures behind the HVAC unit to see what was going on, and to see if it was different in any unit than what the environmentalists had showed us. So we looked at that. In the meantime, we had been taking quotes and trying to get quotes from different companies to quote on replacing, repairing, whatever the chase is. We assembled a small chase committee group led by Scott, okay? And to evaluate what we were looking at, to see what was going on, to see about materials and possible solutions. We then sent a final request for proposals out on the 3rd of December, and I think we got a couple. We're not completely satisfied with what we have, but we've sent out a more formal request for proposals. We contracted, there was one thing identified by the engineer that we felt we needed to fix. And that was, we talked about a couple of board meetings ago, which was the exposed post-tension strands that were in the top of the parking garage. They were exposed and rusting, and we had an engineer come in and repair those, so that repair the safety to the decks. And then we contracted with an architectural firm, Cooper Carey, who you've heard of now a few times, to help the board navigate some of the processes with the projects. Because there's more, while the chase is the big one, there's more than just that. So to help us with material design options and to narrow the scopes of bids, and then they will help us with the bidding process. That's what we hired them to do. We began a discussion with an adjective group of owners. Insightful, smart, questioning, and we had a meeting, I think Janice and you and I had a meeting with them, and Rita, and we just listened to what you had to say. And so one of the things that we need to do a better job of, that was the outcome of that, is that we need to do a better job of communicating. We haven't done a very good job of communicating. So about this issue. So we're going to do a little bit more of that right now. Does everybody on the board agree that that's what we've been doing?
Oh, yeah.
That's what we've been doing. Right, that's what we've been doing. whipping the horse. Okay. So for those of you, and I've been asked a number of times, what's a chase? All right? Well, what we don't have is real chases. What we have is an enclosure, right? This gray thing. This outside piece, you'll notice it if you look from the courtyard or anywhere, is the grill. Behind all that is the HVAC unit that you don't see because it's got a grill in your unit, in your living room. Okay? Just for a little bit of background, this is how it's put together, right? On the very outside is that gray. That's the stucco. Behind that stucco is a coat of something that allows the stucco to stick to it, right? Behind that is what is the water intrusion material, which is what we call the EFIS, or exterior finish insulation, whatever, whatever it's called. It's too many words, too many big words. Okay? And that's what's behind there. Behind there is something that it adheres to, right? Which is sheathing, which Scott likened it to the green board. If you ever put up a new bathroom and you see green board on the walls before they put the tile up, something similar to that. And then that hangs on metal studs. And that makes up your enclosure for your HVAC unit. Okay? I got that right. Did I get that right, Scott? You're the engineer. I'm just pretending.
That's fine. I probably would have used some different words, but you got close.
Okay,
All right.
good enough. Conceptually, am I on? Am I
You're
in?
good. Yeah,
Okay,
it's layers
conceptually, I'm
of
good.
sheetrock in there, right?
Okay. Okay, so this is where I want you to see what we're seeing and why it's important to us. The Vertipack, right? That's the air conditioning unit. You've heard that word. I don't know how much that sinks in. But this is a Vertipack, a newly installed Vertipack. It looks awesome. It's an air conditioning unit. Here's the filter on it, right? Air goes out into the unit. Air goes, returns. Okay, when we take off the grill, inside your unit, what you see is our Vertipack unit, okay? A little dirty, no big deal, right? It's been used. Some of them are, 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. So no one should expect it to look like that, first of all. But that's what it is. But what concerns us is not this. It's what's behind that, okay? And so this is a typical view of our Vertipack in your unit. When we remove the unit, this is common. Let me tell you what this is a picture of. This is a picture of those studs and what's hanging on the stud. And what you're seeing here is the deterioration of the material that is behind those studs. In some places it's really bad. And it is, by the way, what holds up the stucco. Okay? This is common. What you're looking at here is what the Vertipack is sitting on is a drain pan. Water comes out, water comes in, water goes into the drain pan, and water's supposed to go out. Okay, that's the way that's supposed to work. How am I doing on that, Scott? Okay,
You got it.
I'm there. All right. But what is typical in almost every situation that we've seen, and we've inspected 36 units now, we're likely to maybe inspect probably 4 more by the time we get to a decision. We've seen that the rust pan, or the drain pan is fully rusted and non-functional. All right, so how are we getting water out. How will these issues mitigate themselves? They won't. We can switch to the next slide. When we further go down to this is a first floor view of, let's take the stucco off, because we've taken the stucco off. We've had to remove stucco, okay? And here is a view of your the Vertipack, right, on the outside of the wall. And these are the metal studs. And if you look closely, what you can see is metal studs which are rusted, okay? And what that means is that rusting metal, well, you can imagine. If you ever owned a car where you finally, your feet came through the bottom and you were like Fred Flintstone trying to drive your car, you know what happens there, okay? So that's an issue that we need to resolve, clearly. There are other signs, though, of other issues that we're just trying to deal with. This is a picture of the grill and how the caulking and the ceiling has failed. And you can start to see the moisture seep through. That's what this rust spot is. From the rusted pan on the last slide, that seepage through the wall of that tree, because the water's got to go someplace. So it goes places, and it can be visible, particularly as brown streaks that you see outside which don't look very good, frankly. Okay. Again, that's not going to collapse. The grill is not going to pop off here, but that's what it looks like. Other issues like these white things that you might see if you actually looked around, you'll see those things. That's moisture coming through the brick. All right, weeping through the brick. And so we know that within the brick, we also have moisture, and so we need to understand whether or not we're to seal brick, whether or not there's other ways to mitigate that, right? And so we're looking into those things. And here's an example of a corner of your balcony. Not your balcony, but someone's balcony in this case, where chunks of concrete have deteriorated and dropped off. Okay? So we know that these things are all issues that we have to resolve. Okay, so the project is complex. All right? We need to have the right solution. It has to have the best value and the best return. Okay? And that's what we're working on right now. The other issue that we are challenged with is what is going to be the best way for us to approach the building, right? It's a high building. We don't have these anchor hooks that allow us to suspend. We have to either build scaffolding in order to get to these things, or we have to get roof anchors to allow us to suspend. So it's a complex project, but at the end of the day, go to a prior page, maybe page 2. Again, back to right here. Next page. Okay. So when we had all these things, we have all these things to look at. The only thing I want to point out is that unlike other identified capital repairs that we have, like maybe those bricks on the corners, right? The cost of this project, we know, is substantial. It's significant. Okay? We don't believe that we have the necessary amount of money in the capital reserve to pay for this, okay, outright, and then leave us with capital reserves for other things. Okay, so we're coming to the community for a vote on this issue, but we're not going to do that until we're ready to tell you what the options that we have found are. Okay, so and I can't answer that question now. I don't think anybody on this board can answer that question right now. Do I have that right, Scott?
You got it.
Okay. So this is where we are, okay? Cooper Carey is gonna help us to look at what our material options are. We had a meeting with them the other day, and they made some suggestions about it. Some of the things also impact, aesthetics to a degree, so we have to think about that, all right? And then they've been willing to help us to go out and get the contacts, the companies that will help us do this kind of work. So what I would say is that I feel committed to that process, and we will follow through on it until we come to the right conclusion. Do we all agree as a board?
Great.
Agree.
I agree.
Great. God, you agree, right? Okay, so I'm gonna leave it at that. We all agree on what the right action is, and this group has got a little bit more information about what this challenge and what this issue is. Anything outside of that, what you saw, it's not to be listened to, okay? That is it. There's nothing hidden, there's nothing else mysterious, all right? We started off thinking we had a mold issue, all right? That's what happened originally, okay? What we realized is that's not really the issue. It's a symptom of something that's going on, and it's not the hazard that we're worried about. The hazard is the chase, the air conditioning, the cost that's associated with keeping this up and operating and not having some parts of it fall down. Okay? So I will leave it at that. And do we have anything else on the agenda?
Any other board business?
Yeah, and that's not for anybody to have it be a sombering experience. It's just a fact of what we're dealing with. And we have to figure out a way to fix it, and we'll do that soon. Okay? You want to add anything, Scott? No?
Any other board business?
I'd like to say that I think we should have the annual meeting minutes available at least by the next meeting so that the board can review it. So, because when you wait 12 months, 11 months to review it, you begin to say, I don't know what was said, what was not
They are
said.
I think that's
So I think we should be reviewing, the board should be reviewing those minutes, at least for us to say it. But the official approval will be at the annual meeting in December.
I can send them out, because they're done.
That's good.
Is that a
Thank you.
motion?
I don't think it needs a motion. I don't think it needs a
You're right.
motion.
I'm good with that. I think that's good.
What might need a motion though is to see if we could get the standard monthly to monthly minutes in 2 weeks as opposed to 3.5 weeks from the meeting.
Okay.
Is that possible?
We'll ask Linda.
Linda,
That is not
possible?
a comment on your performance.
No, not at all.
And you know what?
That is a request.
We have them ready.
Okay.
That would be great if you could do that.
Okay.
Thank
Do
you.
that.
The other comment is, we did have one change from the 2021, and that's been done.
Yes,
Okay, so, did we sign it? I don't think you signed it until
No.
we made the change, so you can sign
Yeah,
that one
okay.
later.
I haven't
But
seen it.
just to let you know, the change that was presented at the annual meeting for the 2021 minutes has been changed to the correct verbiage. Okay?
Any other business? Board? No? Okay. All right, so you want to open it up for a few minutes to new business or any questions? Good with that? Okay. Any, yeah, Selwyn. Burst in. I see one in the back too.
Well, I said Rita a thing about this, and.
Wait,
Hang on 1 second.
I'm sorry, Helen. Yeah,
I
thank you,
already-
Helen.
About those heaters.
I sent Rita a question about this. Anyway, everybody that lives here, in order to get to this building, the dining room and all that,
has to go by this front entrance in bad weather, can't cut across the courtyard. And that is a terrible problem with the cold just blowing in like crazy and freezing. And I know they've talked about a double entrance, but I don't even know if that's still in the works. But there should be something that could heat up that area or do something.
Right, as I stated earlier in the week, we have turned the heat up in that area, and I know that you recommended us putting heaters on the ceiling. It's not possible because of everything we have inside that ceiling. The type of ceiling we have is not conducive to hang those types of heaters up. But we have turned the heat up.
That's not that thing.
I know.
Wind just comes in like 40 degrees, you know, it's, well, when I said on the ceiling, I didn't necessarily on the ceiling, but up high, the radiant heaters, like as I said, they have an auto dealer, repair shops kind of thing.
Right,
But that's some.
unless you have something that,
Ellen, those are good heaters, you're right. But it takes extra wiring and heaters, and we just don't have the electrical circuits in there to handle that. So it'd be a substantial amount of time and investment. So this year, it's not gonna happen. The hope is that Cooper Carey will come back with some kind of idea as far as on how to do the front entrance. We've got 3 ideas right now on how to do it. And the first one was just too expensive. And then the Chase's problem came along, which obviously is gonna eat up a lot more money. And so this all got put on the shelf. It is not forgotten. It's still definitely part of what needs to be done.
And it is on the capital plan, so.
Included in that lobby would be the sitting area on the first floor. We have 2 automatic doors. You will be blown away or frozen to death, one or the other. And even in the fall, the leaves have to be raked out of the lobby. So can we please do also at the same time something in the first floor in the VA junction?
talking about the double elevators.
That's definitely something that needs to be studied to make sure it can happen. You're right, okay?
Yeah, I didn't want Sue's question to be forgotten.
I'm gonna start with a question first. Does anyone recall?
Sue, speak up, Sue.
Does anyone recall if we have had a meeting in the last year on fire safety?
I didn't hear the question.
I take that's a no.
Is that for the board?
Did everybody hear Sue's question?
Did you hear it?
Yeah, it was hard to hear up here. I heard it, but did everybody else hear it?
When was the last time that we had a safety meeting? Is that what?
Fire
the-
safety.
Fire safety meeting. When was the last time we had a fire safety meeting? Can people in the room remember the last time we had a fire safety meeting?
Okay.
Well, I know the lieutenant was here this past summer because Julie, remember we kept sending him an email to look over the new rules. So it was this summer that we had one.
Was that for the residents?
Yes, yes. I can go through my email and look up the exact date, but I do know it was this past summer that the lieutenant came over here.
How often should we have that? Because we
I mean, we
shouldn't
need to
have it
have
every
it
5 years.
annually.
What that, we should, okay.
At least.
Well, we also had, the fire chief or whomever came over and did another seminar on, I can't remember the topic. Was it falls?
It could have been.
Yeah,
I think that was the
Yeah.
fire marshal.
yeah.
But I know the lieutenant was here this summer because we were trying to get him to firm up the verbiage that we put out. And Julie sent him an email and I sent him an email, but I know he was here this summer and did a presentation in here.
In 2022?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I was gonna suggest that we review that again this year if needed. Also, I don't see anything in the hallway that directs you what to do during a fire, like you would see in a hotel room. And also, how we can aid each other if we need to get out of the building in a hurry.
Let me,
How long have you lived here?
3 years.
Okay, so, I know they put out, like a Q&A for new people, and in that there's a 2-page thing on what to do in case of fire.
Yes, but who's gonna read that
Well,
on
if
short
you don't
notice?
read it, then, I mean, everybody should have it and, you know, put it on their door so they know what to do in case of fire.
Well,
We sent another copy out a few months ago.
I think it should be posted publicly on each hall.
It is.
Where?
It's, wherever the new resident manual, the very front
No,
of it is.
up here, where I can run out of my room and review it and look at it.
Well, if there's a fire, I don't know how many people are, you know, you're wasting time going out to read that. You need to know,
Well,
you need to have it in your
I
condo.
would, hopefully, it would educate people to be familiar with it prior to having an
Well, that's
emergency.
why, when you
Well-
got your copy, it was suggested that you keep it someplace where you could read. What's the difference if it's in the hall or if it's in your condo?
okay, I'm sorry. Why doesn't the board take this back? And I understand where you're coming from, Sue. You're wanting something published that's visible, possibly even on all floors of what they should do. So yes, Julie did a fine job working with the fire department and getting a process down. So let us take a look at that and see what we can do to put a notice or an informational up. Also, Rita can take a look at other types of 1-hour seminars that the fire department can come over and give us periodically throughout the year. It's a good idea.
How about in the laundry room?
So if there's a fire, are you gonna run to your laundry room to see what to do?
No, but they can see that at any time just to look at it.
Yeah,
Well,
but it's already in wherever
In
each
the
floor
the
has
sitting lobbies,
it.
it's
Okay.
So what's the-
Yeah.
let me say this.
Can't have enough.
This is exactly what, when I say task force, that's exactly what I'm referring to. We've got an issue, we've done a lot of work, people know, a lot of people know, some people don't, we'd like to have it advanced just a little bit. So that's exactly, I think
what I
that
will
would
do
be
is I
nice.
will actually ask the fire chief where it should be posted appropriately on
Right.
every hall.
Right.
And go by where he says it should be
Yeah.
posted.
But I would also, I'm gonna actually, I support you
Thank you.
on that, because then there's one thing for us to do it and post it where the fire marshal says, these are all the appropriate things to do. Perfect, we need to do that, right? We need to review how often we do a fire drill, what the instructions are for evacuating the building, all those things are very important to have, okay? But what we also should have, which is up to folks like Sue, is to come back and tell us what they would feel comfortable with, right? So we meet all the requirements that we need to meet as a facility, as a board of directors, as a good caretaker of the facility and the people. And then if there's something else that would make people feel more comfortable, you have to raise that in a way that we can take a look at and say, yeah, you know, that makes sense. We'll go buy some more posters, whatever it is.
What brought this to mind is the incident we had last summer when we had to leave the building. I can get down the stairs fairly easily, but what about my neighbor who might need help? How do we assist each other if we need to?
That's true, Sue. Thank you very much. And we will take that back. You may be part of the task force that's formed, if you would like. So I think that's all good issues, but we will take that back. Okay? All right, thank you.
I have one more. Okay.
There's a question back there which was up right
I would
early.
like the board to consider a landscaping committee.
I'm sorry, a what?
A landscaping committee.
We'll take a look at that too when we're talking about
Okay.
committees.
Is my partner in crime.
I totally understand,
Jane
that's your
Christian.
question, and we will take it back. We'll possibly have another task force. We possibly will have a committee, I'm not real sure.
I would just like to say, between us, we have over 80 years of horticultural experience. And we could help you a great deal without you having to spend a lot of money.
Thank you.
A request, can we get copies of these slides? I mean, if I, request copies as an owner?
Can review them in the office.
An owner can review them in the office.
Thank you.
I disagree, Brian. This has been a very sobering meeting and important. I wish all owners were here. I'm a renter, however, but I do pay my HOA fee, healthy one each month. So I'm going to relate back to these new committees. And by the way, Sue, thank you. That has been on my mind, fire safety. I mentioned it to Lisa on a bus trip several weeks ago, and she was going to follow up, and of course she's not here anymore. But I got a new owner's manual that was 2 years old thanks to COVID when I moved in. So I'm completely unaware, but I would greatly appreciate this all also. Back to the Food and Beverage Committee, I'm just curious as to what is the process, who develops, and then who actually decides or determines the next quarter's menu. How does that work, briefly?
Well, I think that's what the point of putting together the Food and Beverage Committee would be, right? That would be one thing. What happened this time was we had some other issues that we wanted to discuss with Morrison's. There was a lot of discussion about the menu itself. The board got together in a meeting with Morrison's. They were providing their regularly scheduled change in menu. We had a ton of questions about it, from the preparations to the combinations to the what was a vegetable, what was a starchy vegetable, what was a starch, right? And so what were butter beans? And so we went through a huge process of evaluating that. And we sort of kicked that off. But what we did also was we had come to the conclusion that this would be a great place for our residents to be involved in a committee to do that kind of review with the chef or the service too. And so that's what we want to do with the Food and Beverage Committee, which is to grab the right owners or residents to sort of formulate a process around that.
So the board votes then to determine what the next, it's not Morrison's deciding what the menu for the next quarter will be. They might develop it, but the board actually eventually determines. They vote on what the menu will be. Is that correct?
Not really. They bring recommendations, yeah.
The board's had input.
Yeah, right, yeah, okay, so Scott just said it, which is, this is really the first time that the board has ever had input into it, right? It's sort of been, Morrison's put together the menu, we looked at it and said, okay, or we didn't even look at it, I think that, Rita, you looked at it, I don't know who else looked at it, but the board didn't.
Committee.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
just curious, trivial relative to the
Yeah,
other concerns.
Yeah, and we do believe that it is the residents' place to do that, not, I don't live here, I don't eat here. I listen to my father-in-law, whatever he tells me to do.
All right.
I think along those lines too, it's important to note that the word resident has been used frequently, which means that we're looking at not just owners to be on that particular committee, but the residents who live here, who utilize the dining room.
Good. Along that, a quick question. This is a community for active seniors. Along that line, the social/activities that Reed is going to be heading up. Just a quick question. On some of the events, some of the classes in particular, we have very good instructors. And one of them in particular is very popular. So sometimes it's very full, and sometimes a resident or two like me and others doesn't get to sit in because there's not a chair there, because there may be 1, 2, or 3 caregivers who are there with their residents who are there. So my question is, and same with some music events, especially lately when we haven't had a schedule of concerts and other activities due to COVID. But is there any process or any concern with that? Does a resident take priority over the caregiver? Because apparently, obviously, the resident does need to have a caregiver there. Is there a procedure?
Yes, a
on that?
caregiver should not occupy a chair in exercise or an outing or in entertainment.
Okay.
So yes, that should not be happening. I will check into that.
Well, no need, but we are okay. That's not because they do need, the residents obviously do need the caregivers, or they wouldn't be there. But I just wondered if there had been any procedure or process to that. That'll do it. Thank you very much. This has been an extremely good and informative meeting for me and hopefully everyone else.
Just a couple of suggestions or inquiries. Scott.
Speak up, please.
What?
Speak up, please. Speak up. Talking to the mic.
You can't hear this?
There you go. Sure can now.
Go, Bill.
To follow up on Scott's suggestion that the board review the annual meeting minutes, why not put out a draft for all the owners to look at and give their comments, while it's still fairly fresh in our little minds. And another is there any way to reduce the time that the front door stays open during the cold weather? I don't think it'll close on anybody anyway. That might help a little bit on the breeze.
They're on the time sensor, but
It's on a timer.
yeah.
You could look at that, yeah.
This is back to the social group that you're talking about, and that's also going to be activities. So are we to assume there's not going to be an activities director anymore?
Yes, there is, and I want to clarify that in my opinion, the social group, we do not sit and wait on them to bring us all the activities that's going to be on the calendar for a month. We have to continue on as we always accordingly. We're always working on the activities for the month. Like for February, we're working on now. January's ready to go.
Okay, I was just trying to get that clear.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
I have just wanted a little bit of clarification on the units that were looked at. We had 36 out of 300 units looked at so far. Is there any way of knowing the location, and were they in the same were they throughout the A and B buildings? Where were these 36 units? Because I know that you had said they were common and typical for the findings when you took them apart. But what I want to know is this common and typical for the 300 units?
Yeah, they were very random. Wherever they were vacant, right? So that's the first thing, wherever they were vacant, and that could have been anywhere in the building. The one thing that we did do was then we said we're going to take one stack and do it all, so that we could see the differences between what was happening on floor 1 and what was happening on floor 10. And there were differences in those things, right? There was different levels of deterioration as you moved up, but still we saw deterioration in all the floors, whether it was in that particular stack or let's say a unit on 10 that wasn't in that stack.
Yeah, the first go around, we made sure that we picked one on each stack, so we tried not to get, several on the same stack, so we could have more of a random look.
And we're gonna continue to look, between now and the time that we make a decision, if units become available to us to inspect, we're gonna do that. So like I said, I think that there's a likelihood that we'll be up to like 40, I think, by the time we're ready to make a decision.
And also, I'll try and project here. You said the reports are available, we can look at by requesting them at the front desk? Is that
No,
what I understood?
her question was, could you guys get copies of this, the slideshow here? You can review them in the office.
Okay. What about the reports or the number of 36 units? Any of that available?
I didn't, I think
I
that.
sent you
Yeah,
the-
you
Yeah, I
have
got
to
that,
have
but
the
it
report.
wasn't, it was, one of them was complete, one of them wasn't. So,
Right.
I have the initial reports, but I'm more curious about the distribution of the 36 units. Just for my own.
So it would be the book that we have of the,
There wasn't any distribution, was there?
There was no distribution.
There was no distribution.
No, numbers, condo unit numbers.
Oh.
Just was curious.
There wasn't a distribution of the specific condo units either. So
When I say
I'm not-
distribution, I'm not talking about handout distribution. I just was, like I said, I was just curious as to the location of the units that have been looked at, the 36 units.
Oh.
And like I say, Jarita clarified that it was a cross-section of the different stacks. So,
I think that's what Rita said. It was definitely it was a cross-section of stacks and a cross-section of floors.
And it made no difference whether it was north facing, south facing, east facing, made no difference vertically, first floor, fifth floor, eighth floor, we had similar results all over.
that's
the
what I
board.
was curious about. Thanks, Scott.
I'm Dan Castle, and I've been on the Chase Committee for months now. And I'm one of the people that you were just told that's not to be listened to. If you have unlimited funds and don't want to hear the other side of the story and additional information, don't listen to it. If you would like to know everything that's going on, I have a lot to say. The only thing I'm going to bring up today is in the information presented, there wasn't one word said about how do we prevent this from happening again. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So if we spend the $2 million or more to replace these chases without doing some additional things that need to be done, first of all, it's engineering malpractice, and second of all, maybe not us in this room, but our heirs or whoever we sell our condos to are going to be facing this again in the future. Question I have, I found a piece of paper in my door about the initiation fee, the 3%. And it says, I don't know who said this, I think I know, but not sure. We are forming a little group to start making calls to owners that didn't send in a consent form. Last year, when the motion did not pass for the 2 months HOA as a transfer fee, what we're talking about is when somebody buys your condo, that buyer theoretically is supposed to pay last year 2 months HOA. This year it's 3% of the sale price. So I would like to know if such a little group has been formed, who's on it, and how do the people that oppose this have an opportunity to talk to the same people
that you're gonna be talking to, trying to convince them that they should agree to this 3% transfer fee.
I believe that we have a few owners who understand the need for these types of fees, and I can think of at least one, maybe two, that have, well, they didn't come to me, but have expressed the desire to drive that. And I'm supportive of it. And that's what I'll say. I'm supportive of that activity. I'm not directing that activity, but I'm supportive of it.
So 2 non-board members, nor Rita, make up this little group? Who's, why the secrecy? Who's doing this?
Well, the first thing is, I don't know, I didn't even know that there was a letter anywhere.
Right, it's
Okay,
a
so-
FORAT minutes is what he's referring to, and there's not been a group formed yet, but the question was brought up, what is this declaration consent? I explained exactly what it was, and the fact that we are going to pursue it. Those who did not send a consent form in, we do have a list of those owners, and we are going to make calls. Whether it be myself to some, Susan's already made some calls, and there is some interest from a couple of owners that says, I will come to the office and make calls as well, because I believe in getting this done.
Okay. I and other owners also have an interest of having access to that same call list so we can contact people and explain again the other side of the story about why this isn't a good idea to do that. So can we do that? And if not, why not?
Dan, I'd like to address that concern. And your comment was not a question. Your first comment was that you wanted to also address the folks to get the whole story or the other side of the story. I personally feel that that was a slap in my face to say that I am a board member. Residents and owners have elected me, as well as every one of us on the board, to do the right thing for Mount Vernon Towers. We have been so concerned with giving all the information that we have without overwhelming people. As Brian said, this is a complex activity.
I'm not talking about this.
I got you. But it's not just with the chases, it's also with the comment that you just made about you don't believe in the 3%. And yeah, that is your opinion, and that's fine. Everybody else has an opinion. What I'm saying is that your comments to the board, in my opinion, has been so disrespectful in the last several months to say that we are trying to hide something. We are not being transparent. And I take offense to that, because anybody that has come up to me, and I believe to any one of the board members, and ask a question about anything that we're trying to do, we give them the truth as we know it. And I'm only saying this because you do have an opinion. It comes across very angry, and that's fine. That's your personality. But I have to, you can laugh, but it does come across very angry that you don't trust us, and maybe you don't. But all we're trying to do is fulfill a commitment that we have made to the people here at Mount Vernon Towers to do what is right. And to me, these chases is the most important thing that we need to do. If we go this year without, and you've said many times in many meetings, can we not delay this? Well, I don't know how much more we can delay before something absolutely happens drastic. And I am a board member, and I do not want any type of issue to happen with this building that would harm someone. And I am very, very angry right now at your comments, because I, for one, believe I'm a very truthful person. I, for one, think that the people that voted for me to elect me think that I'm very truthful, and I think all of the board members are. And that is my comment, and you don't have to respond at all.
But I'm going to.
Well, then make it brief.
That's another issue. Owners in this meeting have been told many times to sit down and shut up. You just did it again by making it brief, Janet.
I did not tell you to sit down and shut up. I asked you to make it brief. And I'm not going to sit here and argue with you, because that's exactly what you want me to do.
No, I don't. I want to get my point across.
I think your point has been given many, many, many months. You don't like what we're doing. You do not want us to move forward. I don't know what you want to do with this building, but if it's put in your hands, I'm afraid that it's going to crumble. We have had so many issues before that the board has elected to fix as a repair versus fixing as in making sure that it doesn't happen again. Or if it does, then what are the steps that we're taking to do that? So I am not ever going to tell you to sit down and shut up. But I do ask that you treat this board with a little more respect than you have.
I will be, I will be happy to, but Janice, the history is, I have been called a lowlife. I have been told to sit down and shut up. I was just told here in the meeting that I'm not to be listened to. That's inappropriate too. It works both ways, Janice. My only comment to the people listening here, there is more information about the chases. There's obviously activity going on to go out and get the 3% transfer fee approved without other people that don't share those opinions having an opportunity to be heard. I hope that was brief enough.
Thank you.
And I would like to speak as a resident homeowner that I am resentful of the time you're the only non-resident homeowner I know that travels an hour each way.
2 hours.
2 hours each way to attend a board meeting, and you're not happy with anything that goes on. Since you bought in here, you bought the first one, now you own 4, and I understand you have bought 5. So if you're so unhappy, why do you keep buying?
Good job.
And you take up our time too.
I'm not going to let people waste their money if I have ways that we can do things more expeditiously, more financially responsible, etc. And to you, ma'am, I don't know who you are. I appreciate your opinion. But those 5 condos I bought came at a price. I now have a million reasons to make sure that this building does stand, that it's properly protected.
I live here, this is my home.
I intend to live in B1002 when I move into this towers, which I just purchased. That's my ultimate home. I'm not ready to move here yet. Doesn't mean I can't invest as other people have invested here. 40% of these condos are owned by people that don't live here. And that's fine. But I will tell you also, ma'am, again, I don't know who you are. When I stand up here, it's my mouth moving, but do you think I'm really standing here alone? That I don't have a lot of people, and there's several in this room, that may not stand up and clap and all that, but are darn glad that I'm making these comments.
Would they stand up?
I'll change the subject completely. You were talking, of course, about the fire safety and that type of things. And I sort of have suggested in the past, not too seriously, I guess, that every week in the Tower Talk, they put an information sheet that reminds us about something, like how to do the fire thing, or how to do the recycling, or stuff like that. Because people don't remember. Some people's memory is much worse than others. Now, on the fire safety, if you made a laminated sheet like they do in hotels and gave it to each unit and said, put this on the inside of your door, gave maybe some those little sticky things to put it on with or something, that might help. So it would always be where you could see it, rather than stuck in a drawer somewhere. And the new residence manual, I have some disagreements with what's in it, but anyway, that's not a real thing. But I don't think the old residents have a copy of it, so they don't know anything about it.
Well, each floor rep, and you're a floor rep on the 8th floor, was given a copy to put in the sitting area.
Right. Well, I was waiting until some of these controversial things
It
in there
needs
might
to
be
go out.
settled.
If you don't want to put it out, I'll come put it out.
Well, I mean, I've got it.
I don't think that's what she's saying, Rita. I think that what she's saying is, hey, what's, as a suggestion, right? Why don't we have a printed evacuation safety action, right? Laminate it, give them a magnet.
Yeah.
And put it on your
But she's saying
refrigerator.
that the older residents don't have the new book, but each floor rep was given it to put in the sitting parlor.
Is it online?
I'm
So
sorry?
again,
Is it online?
we can put it online.
Because the old one, I think at one time was.
Yeah. We can put it under the condo docs.
Yeah.
I think the action for this was to get a review with the fire safety marshal, right? And
Yeah,
then
she's talking
to-
about the resident manual now.
Yeah,
I think the
right,
resident
but
manual
this
is
is all connected, right? This is all a topic. And there are plenty of places, there are a lot of places where this can infiltrate, right? Whether it's the resident manual, whether it's the lobby, whether it's the laundry room, whether it's the online. So it's all one thing. We should have the package and then
It
deliver
is,
the
but they
package.
still have to read it.
Yeah,
That's true.
okay.
All right, any other questions?
Okay, since there are no other questions, 2:40, next meeting.
Oh,
I'm getting better.
I had it on there. I think it's the 20th at 1:30.
20th at 1:30.
Okay, everybody okay with that? Yep, okay. All right, so 2:44. I'll call for an adjournment of the meeting. Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, good. Great. Yeah. All right, thanks.
Thank you all.